So my name is Maurice Obuya. I am from Kenya. I have an organization called Kajulu Hills Eco Villages, and we have been trying to develop one of the biggest eco villages in Africa, where with the partnership with Luis and other friends. So we are intending to have several cottages. Our target is 88, and some conference facilities. And currently, we already have about 500 ecosystems, and the place is about 30 acres, and we also want to add another 30 acres. So it is on top of a hill where maybe you can put off your microphones as I speak so that we don't have echoes. You can just put off your microphone so that you don't have echoes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is on top of a hill, and it is somewhere, it's a forest which was totally destroyed. Now I'm recovering it with a lot of indigenous ecosystems and trees and fruits. So apart from Kajulu Hills Eco Villages, I also have an academy called Kisumu City Permaculture Academy, where I train different people in regenerative agriculture, and I use the original 18 principles of Bill Mollison on permaculture and 5 ethics, the original ones, which I was mentored by Brett Pritchard. So Brett Pritchard was one of the personal assistants to Bill Mollison when they separated with David Holmgren. So I've also been talking to this daughter of Bill Mollison called Ramsey Mollison. So they developed some tools and cards which I use to train, and now I use them within my ecosystems. There are around 21 tools, and they also have mind maps. So I've also developed a facilitators manual that I use based on my system. So the students have a lot of time to interact with the system, and also to do assessments and learn how to create ecosystems and the factors that are also working within the different ecosystems. So I think in total we have more than 500 different ecosystems that we use to train our students. So it is real-time training. So basically, for our regenerative agriculture, we call for our creation of holistic social, family, economic, education, spiritual, environmental, and human health. That is also promoting local indigenous medicines from the different plants that we have. So we treat all our animals that we have, like poultry, like livestock, and ourselves with the indigenous medicine from our farm. So we don't buy medicine. So we believe that this is an awakening approach towards sustainable prosperity and tranquility with nature. Yeah, and also we target all households. So we believe that if households are sufficient with food and also indigenous medicine, so they have very little depend on the government, and also they have very little to spend on food, because currently the number of households which are producing their own food is almost none. And I was just talking to a friend about another man from UK. He's called Charles Mondley. So he has a very big farm. He sprays with a lot of chemicals and sell it to the public. And then in his own farm, he's using organic methods. So actually, almost 99% of people currently, they're eating food that is highly toxic, and where a lot of chemicals have been used. So we really call for employment of systematic and comprehensive organic strategy scheme that is geared towards entrenching natural transgender. That means embraces all genders, transcontinents, that embraces all the continents, and transracial across all races, transreligious across all religion, and also cultures. And really want to put this, to change people from this highly spending culture to sustainable culture, where now they produce, and also they produce for everything, including the environment also. Yeah. So we are looking at currently at 3 main problems that we have across Africa, and I believe this is also happening across the world. That one of the problems that we have is that we have companies that are selling what we call lime to improve soil pH so that the plants can grow. So now we have a problem of high pH soil leading to poor soil health and also leading to poor crops quality. So we cannot, if we don't eat crops which are produced from a healthy soil, then it means that our health is also going to be compromised. Apart from eating low nutrient food, we are also eating food that is laced with chemicals. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have in terms of poor soil health and high soil pH, which has to be fixed every season for the plant to grow. And then I talked about health issues. We have inadequate and unsafe food leading to ill human health. Right now we are having many people suffering from geriatric problems like cancer, diabetes, and heart problem. We just lost a minister at 70 years yesterday. He was a very healthy man, but just got heart problems because people are depending on food from supermarkets, and he's a very senior physician. So it does not matter who somebody is, whether it's a doctor or wherever it is, everybody's suffering. And this is the second physician that was close to me that I knew that we have lost. But it at very early age, just due to eating supermarket foods, which is laced with a lot of toxics. So this is about human health also, apart from environment, it's about human health. And we are also having a challenge of, we are also having experiencing poor environment, health leading to climate change. Because, in Kenya, like for example, it is legal for somebody to cut at 20,000 indigenous forests and plant maize, which will only last 3 months. And most of our forests, the rich people have done that. They have cleared and they have planted a monoculture system, leading to a lot of desertification, even in the rain catchment areas. So one of the biggest challenges is that our environment is continuing to deteriorate, and the health of the environment is also going down, and desertification is also increasing. So the root causes for this that we are trying to fight or to preach against, one of them is the monoculture practice, because monoculture will also demand a lot of chemicals and pesticides, because it is easier for pests to attack a monoculture system. So we are proposing polyculture systems. And then also GMO seeds. We have, actually, I was surprised. I went to my Kajulu Hills Eco Villages, the community there. They don't have any single indigenous seeds for vegetable. And that's where we are heading. So I've been trying to mobilize indigenous seeds across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And I've been trying to supply different groups. I've supplied more than 50 groups with indigenous seeds through other projects that I've been having with other partners. So the issue of lack of seeds and promotion of GMO seeds is also a very big challenge in the world today. And we hope that people are going to change and start producing their own seeds, and which are regenerative. They can plant season from season. Like now, I have maize which I can plant season from season, and beans, and all my seeds are just regenerative. So through this promotion of indigenous seeds, we expect also to regenerate the people and also the planet and the farmers to help them regenerate. We cannot do permaculture with GMO seeds. I think that is one of the experience I had when I visited another project, that they were using GMO seeds to do permaculture because they are not regenerative. And then also, the other thing which I mentioned, the problem is use of chemical fertilizers and toxic pesticides and insecticides. So nature control itself. Nobody sprays the forest, and there are a lot of fruits and everything else and all the animals. So we are trying to discourage people from using these toxic chemicals. And our main approach is to train people on the 18 principles of mass regeneration. And what we want to achieve is we have 3 goals that we want to achieve. One is sustainable regenerative agroforestry to mitigate climate change, because we combine food production, that is regenerative agriculture, also agroforestry, agroecology, and through these ecosystems, all the plants and animals live together and complement each other, and we have very accelerated regeneration. And then the other thing that, apart from climate change, we also want to promote sustainable regenerative agroforestry for food security and human health. So a good quality of food goes with good human health. Poor food goes with bad results to bad human health. So, and then also, we also want to provide to achieve sustainable regenerative agroforestry for soil and environmental health. So when the soil is healthy, the we want to make healthy soils that regenerate themselves, which will lead to good environmental health, because we integrate very many types of crops. We have like primary crops, we have secondary crops, we have tertiary crops, we have supportive crops, we have crops that provide, act as pest repellents, yeah, and also nitrogen fixing. So we have very different types of crops in that ecosystem, which you decide which live together. So that one leads to healthy soil and also good environment or environmental health. And then finally, we want to sustain, we want a sustainable off-grid household, social, spiritual, family, and economic cohesion, and prosperity and abundance and tranquility. So that is what we want to entrench in our eco-village, so that we have the eco-village can produce their own water, they have their own energy, natural energy, they have their own gardens and foods, and from the surplus now, they can sell and buy things like fuel and also pay for their children school fees and buy things they cannot produce in the farm. So briefly, that is what I'm doing currently. I've trained more than 500 people from, even including Nigeria. I've trained one from Nigeria. I'm expecting another two the next March from Nigeria. I've trained some from DRC, Sudan, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and Kenya. Yeah. So through once we train these people, we also have a peer support mechanism in Telegram. We have about 200 people, practitioners, and also in WhatsApp, where we have around 150 people who are practicing permaculture. So through this support system, people are able to interact. And if you don't want, if you need a particular seed, you are able to request, and then somebody who has from the group can be able to, you can link with him and get those seeds. And also, if you have some joint activities, then you can link with those people, somebody who is next to you, and you have a joint activity. So through these mechanisms is what I've been pioneering to promote regenerative agriculture in Kenya, East Africa, and Africa. And I've also have partners across the world, across all the continents, and many countries in Europe and also America that we are also working with. So I think I'll end at that, and I'll say thank you very much for listening. Maybe if there's any question, I can respond.
Thank you very much, Maurice. That's quite interesting. I think I'll prefer after all the presentation, then we'll bring out the questions to ask. Or should we ask the questions now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think questions can be asked right now. Somebody has it. No, before they forget.
Okay. That's okay. I would like you to. You're talking about how to use lime. That's using lime in the soil. People might hear of using lime in the soil, but they might not know what it is really used for. So I want you to maybe elaborate on that aspect. What is lime used for on the soil?
Yeah, we have a global program called 1 Acre Farm. Yeah, you see, people have been trained to be so myopic, and the mindset is actually about how much money do I make. So if the problem is the pH, yeah, put lime, and then the pH will come back to the right level, because the right level is supposed to be between 6. For me, it's supposed to be 6 and 7, and most of the soils are 8 and above. So put the lime into the soil for that period, and then get your harvest, and then the pH will become even worse after that. So lime helps it's a temporary solution that helps to worsen the health of the soil, but helps you to harvest. So the 1 Acre Farm people have been promoting this lime to fix the pH for people to harvest for that particular season. Yeah. So it helps in temporarily fixing the pH for that particular season.
Thank you very much.
Maurice, I would like to remind you about an old American proverb. Remind all, in fact.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear. Yeah, see, there is an old American proverb. Of course, Americans themselves have been promoting too much lime these days. Very, very ironically. But there is an old proverb by Americans themselves that lime and lime without manure makes the farmer rich and the sun poorer. I hope you got it.
I don't got it clearly.
Yeah, so just as you said, the immediate results will be there, but you are slowly killing the soil. And lime was used particularly as a very, very temporary means to increase the soil pH by a very small extent.
Yes.
But these days the problem is we use these materials very conveniently over and above the required quantity.
Okay.
Which is the biggest problem that we have. Everything is over-engineered and overused, and there is no calculations done. There is no relevant study in order to use a particular material in a soil. So these problems add to the issues.
Yeah, because we equate the health of the soil to the amount of carbon and also living organisms that's in the soil. Because if there are no living organisms in the soil, then the soil is dead and there's no carbon. So it's purely chemical, and so it is so sad.
Yeah. So the future generations will struggle, which the Americans themselves have said in the proverb.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Maurice, for the introduction and very detailed talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Maurice. In the absence of any other team, in saving time, can you hear me? Can you hear me there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I think we'll invite Luis Gallardo to make his presentation. Luis, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. My name is Luis Gallardo. Oh, Maurice, I think you have to switch off the microphone, otherwise it will echo as well. Thank you. So much. Oh, it's still on. It's on the bottom on the left side. Okay, awesome. So my name is Luis Gallardo. Thank you for having me, Lawrence, here. It's been a privilege, and I'm the founder of the Food Forest and Eco Villages movement. And I'm a city farmer here in Canberra. I'm learning many things about regenerative agriculture and permaculture in small spots, in public land, in private land. And what I believe is like when we are creating biodiversity, we bring in little life back again into our little corners, say little gardens, public land, big fields, regenerative places, and that comes to bringing life to make new forests, no? It can be microforests, can be big forests like agroforestry, together with farming techniques, And in permaculture, we got layers, and one of the very important layers to look after is the ground cover. When you get and fill up fields and farms full of ground cover, you preserve the water, because when we grow monocrops, sometimes we have bare land, and one of the problems with monocrops, like Maurice said, we need a lot of pesticide, we need a lot of chemicals, we need to do a lot of inputs. So while you get different crops, for example, you need nitrogen fixes, and then all the nitrogen from the atmosphere is going to go down to the soil, same as when we plant trees together with crops, because some of the crops will fix a lot of carbon as well, like some flowers, some roots like Jerusalem artichokes, they get like big thick stamps every year, you know, and that's carbon already. So that's really important, even in a small crop as well. But trees are amazing. They another layer of the permaculture forest. And perennials are vegetables that we don't have to plant every by season. They'll grow. If it's winter, it's cold, and they don't like it, they stay under the ground. And then after that, in spring, they will start popping up, and then you see life, you know. And that's very important to create a biodiversity, little biodiversity in your area, in your little paradise, wherever you are in the world. And then when you have that, you can empower and inspire more people to do that. And that's important, biodiversity, because we're going to attract beneficial insects. And these are the natural pesticides. We have here many ladybugs that comes to the carrot flower. The flower gets the aphids, and then instead of cutting it, because you think like, oh, you know, or spraying pesticides, you think like, oh, it's just massive everything. No, after a few days, 1 or 2 weeks, the ladybugs start coming, and the ladybugs start reproducing themselves, and you can see all the larvae coming in, and it's just amazing. It's in a little spot you can see life, you know. So that's very important. With the planting trees, it's very important to understand that trees are made of carbon, and this beautiful thing comes from the atmosphere. So when we're doing monocultures and conventional agriculture, we put all the carbon into the atmosphere, which we have the problem of climate change, because everything raises up the temperature, and it's a little bit difficult to understand if you are on that side. But in regenerative agriculture, we understand very well that we have to conserve forests. We have to conserve the trees, the ancient trees, the native. And if we have it, we preserve it. If we don't have it, we start planting, creating biodiversity. And one of the things that we could do to help that is to get to harvest the water. When the water comes to our place, sometimes doesn't rain much, but even in desert, they are greening the desert because of that. We are trying to harvest the water as much as we can with swells, and we create new ponds, new areas that new life can come in. It is amazing and little complex. We call it where some people on YouTube, they're doing very well explaining how ponds can regenerate as well and help climate change. So I invite you to put a pond in your place and harvest all the water that you can during the rainy season. And then in India, they're doing very well in different areas where large ponds are created back again to create that healthy ecosystem, healthy soil as well, and just have the awareness of creating life again. That's beautiful. So at the moment, this is my talk, and I can answer any questions as well, and I can promote the eco villages later as well, because we need as well to connect with investors who will be living in this movement of creating life again, food security, and yeah, the real estate can have a big impact, because you can build eco villages, which is sustainable building natural buildings all over the world. But we just need income and someone that believe in it, and it's like, oh, you know, this is a great idea. We can all come together and help our communities around locally. Actually, thank you.
Again, everyone. Here, I'm January from Uganda, the founder of Kabunga's Brain Organization for the development in the refugee camp. Yeah, I really appreciate the explanation that I've got to Mr. Lewis, and I'll make explanation and read to have people like you this and to Mr. Morris for joining me to this meeting today. I'm really grateful for sure. Thanks. I don't have much as a question, but the explanation, as the man saying, I really appreciate the explanation, and I hope that you will learn something great from the explanation that comes from Mr. Lewis. Thanks.
Good. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Louis, I would like to add a few points. What is your idea of adding honeybee farming, that is apiculture also along with regenerative and permaculture systems?
Okay, for me, as a I'm learning a little bit about bees this year, and I got only one colony. It's a young colony, and I had two supers. One is gonna be the one that they're gonna harvest the honey from, and the other one is the one that I'm gonna harvest without. So these bees are in a four frame limestone, and then the top one I add some jars upside down with box on top, and then they start coming with the honeycomb. So the bees are important in pollination, but there's a little bit of controversial in here because some permaculturists they think it's too much of pollinating. Sometimes you get crops that pollinates all the flowers in one year and then they harvest a lot, and the following year they don't harvest as much. So it's a little bit controversial, but I heard in Queensland they growing a lot of macadamia, and then they have the native bees. So they put little colonies of native bees because honeybees are important, but we don't have to forget about native bees. Native bees is super important. We don't really know much about bees. We try to harvest and try to exploit the bees, but we have to just to get that contact and say like, oh, I don't deserve that honey. They need it. I deserve a little bit, but not too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, native bees are very important. The honey of you can harvest the honey from native bees, but very small amounts, and it's sweet and sour.
Yeah.
And a part of the native bees that they're pollinating some crops like macadamia flowers, we have many species of native bees that we don't understand yet, but they are needed. So
there are also species which do not bite you.
Yeah,
which can help farmers.
Some of them are stingless. So if anyone is scared of bees, the best is to get native bees. And normally, native bees are in coastal areas where there's no frost and things like that. But we also have native bees here in Canberra. But yeah, they like that kind of weather. And they are a little bit slower than European bees. The European bees, they wake up earlier and they go to work earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and sometimes
don't forget about that.
Yeah. Sometimes native bees are around. You can avoid a lot of pests in your plot or garden or piece of land. You can avoid a lot of flying pests.
Yeah.
when native bees are around, because in Kerala, in the province where I stay, they use the native bee boxes to avoid elephant attack, wild boar attack, then pig attack in the farms, and also it also avoids some species of aphids and other miniature pests, because a lot of animals, they do not like the frequency of buzzing of bees,
Oh yeah.
especially the wild ones. So they stay away from honeybee boxes.
Oh, it makes
So
sense.
there are a lot of people, because we stay very close to the forest, and probably I'll send you a few links in the group also, because people close to the forest in the province of Kerala in India. We are in the southernmost part of India, and we have got the Western Ghats onto our west side, and I stay 2 kilometers away from the Western Ghats, so it's very close to the forest, and we've got almost daily elephant movement, wild boar movement. So what we do, many farmers who do rice and many other kind of vegetable farms, so they keep honeybees as a fencing. Every 20-25 feet, they have a box. And what happens is, some people keep the normal bees, some people tend to keep the native bees so that they don't bite back. And it's easier to remove the honey how much ever you want, whether you want to remove the honey or half of the honey. So it helps. So which is why I try to ask you if you have found it helpful at any place. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's interesting because the encounter with the bee in nature was fantastic here. I mean, in Queensland as well, but here I am already observing how they make the nest in the old trunks and trees, and you can see them flying in and out. So these are swarms that they live in nature. In Queensland, it's really interesting because, like you said, if someone is scared of the stink, native bees, they are so friendly. You can touch them, you can go close to them, you can smell them in the beehive natural, and it's just beautiful. It's powerful and it's very interesting. But I'm not too sure if you see the origin of the bee in the evolution. So bees were wasp before, uh, but bees became vegetarians or vegans, I guess. So these are the ones that they like flowers, and they are the vegans of wasp. So wasp, they are very important as well because they go around the pest, and they are the carnivores of the insects, and that is very very interesting. I didn't know that, and someone told me about that, and it's like, wow, this is clever. Some of the wasps decide to just eat on pollen and nectar, instead of praying for another insects. Yeah, it's very clever.
Yeah,
that's quite interesting. In Africa or Nigeria, we couldn't, or most of us couldn't differentiate between the native and the other type of bees. We see bees as unfriendly insects, but very useful insects. And I'm so glad that you're saying this now. You have bees are friendly and the native one. Which is the wild one? Is it the native one?
Yeah, I'll give you a
The one
simple.
that-
Yeah, I'll give you a simple method to differentiate, Lawrence. One of the main characteristics of native wild bees is their size. They are much smaller than the domestically grown bees.
Okay.
So normally, most of the much smaller bees, they are only the size of a fly, the normal household fly. So they are not they're not bigger than that. So most of these smaller bees are tend to be native bees and wild bees. And wild honey is one of the costliest material in the world.
Okay, good.
Some
Yeah,
people,
that's
sorry
good.
to make that in, it's very important to know that native bees, some people saying like we are saving the wrong bees. Honeybees give us honey, but the honeybees, the native bees, there are many species, and we don't know much about them. And what we're learning is how to make in urban areas bee hotels. Bee hotels is like wherever you have a little sticks or little holes you can make with little mud as well, and then they burrow holes and things like that. Some of them they put male and female eggs like that, you know, in different lengths of the sticks. Sometimes in the farm, if you have, for example, you get the crop of, for instance, the one that I have at the back here, the broad beans, and then you leave some of the sticks out, like you don't cut them all from the very base.
Okay.
By the way, if you keep the legumes roots underneath, you will fix the nitrogen in that area. So if you get the roots out of your farm, nitrogen goes back to the atmosphere, I guess. It doesn't get fixed there, or somehow you need to provide that nitrogen there. So the native bees will go and nest in that little untidy area, which as humans we try to just create that, um, I guess, clear everything, no? Like to tidy up, but they need something that is untidy, which are sticks, and they're gonna nest there. That's the healthy hotels for them. So they nest in different untidy areas which have sticks with holes in it.
Okay, that's good. Luis, I want to know, is it that the native bee doesn't produce honey? Because Bedi was talking about the normal honey bee and the native bee. Is it that the native bee is just meant for pollination or what? Or does it also produce honey?
So some native bees that they are social, they live like honeybees in colonies. They will produce honey. So native bees in Queensland or in coastal areas, tropical areas, and places where they don't freeze normally, they don't. We don't have frost. They will produce a little bit of honey, and they make honey in bags. So they don't have these cells like honey European bees or honeybees have, or the African bees. They have bags, and then they produce this sweet and sour honey. So they are social, and then they have colonies, and then they make honey. But the native bees, many native bees, they're solitary. Solitary means that they just live on their own, and then they just have they reproduce from time to time, and they lay eggs in these little sticks and little cavities, maybe around the house as well. If you have a cob house, you will see the different holes. They are native solitary bees. Solitary means that one person, one insect, one animal, you know. And the social, they make honey. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And one more question before we go to the next person. For the sake of our rural farmers, most farmers in Nigeria practice monocropping. And you were talking about building biodiversity to um, promote natural pesticides. for the sake of our rural farmers, I just want you to tell us how do they build the biodiversity, and in what ways does this encourages the natural pesticides. Thank you.
Okay, I want to mention something very interesting that I found out this weekend. I went to a place, friend of mine that is from Kenya actually, and he got farms in Kenya, but he lives here in Canberra. And his place is very interesting because he got very it's a small plot, 400 square meters, but they have a nice biodiversity of fruits. They have berries, and they have these vineyards that they are amazing. This year didn't fruit much because of the wet weather. So now you have drought there, and we don't have drought here. So it's just changing a little bit. So yeah, it's very interesting that I have here in my house with the carrots flower. We have the ladybugs that they are red, but in his plots in the vineyards he got the ladybugs that are yellow. So there will be very many species of ladybugs, and some people are already selling ladybugs or praying mantis. That's a natural pesticides. So we'll go to the aphids, for instance, and then they will feed them. They will procreate and reproduce, and it's amazing. So that's very important to know that natural pesticides can be created in your biodiversity. So when I say biodiversity, we can put many species of fruits, berries, and perennials in one spot. So let's see, one farmer got one monocrop. Well, he can introduce 2 or 3 more in the area. For example, in maize, for example, you use corn. So you can plant some fruit trees around. Maybe we can start with 3 types of trees. Maybe you can get some bananas. Maybe you can get some avocados. Maybe you can get some mangoes. Maybe you can get, you see, you start with 3 and then you start progressing from that. And that's important. For example, the carrots, leave one carrot 1 year and see how beautiful is the flower. You smell it, and then after that the aphids came, propagate everything. They start making this mess in the flower. But if you don't cut it and then you have the patience, 2 weeks later the ladybugs start creating new life again. And the biodiversity is very healthy for ecosystem. But for the rural farmer, when you have more crops, so you diverse your crops, you get 5. Later in the following years, you get 10, you get 15. When you go to local markets and then you sell your produce, you don't have to rely on only one crop and one price. So when you go to the market and say, like, oh, I have tons of maize. Now I'm gonna focus in half a ton of maize, but then I'm gonna have another ton of sweet potatoes. The leaves are super nutritious and you can sell it for salads as well. You can plant a little bit of chilies. Everyone likes chilies. Then that creates flowers, creates different biodiversity in micro farming. You can have a big farm, but you can start small as well. So the farmer will have many crops to sell a higher price. And then you can create that biodiversity, natural pesticides, which we don't have to pay money to chemicals. So it saves money, and it's healthier for animals, insects, and for us. As humans, we are animals also.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we hear from Maurice?
Yeah, my hand is up. It's up. I just wanted to talk about 3 points. One, is that there is a principle that we say that we don't want to have wastage in our systems, ecosystems. So ecosystems produce a lot for the bees. So the more species of bees that you have, the better. So if you have an ecosystem and you don't have bees, so it means that you cannot produce honey, and yet it is a product that is readily available from the system. So in an ecosystem, the more elements you have, the more wastage that you reduce because you produce a lot of elements. And then in terms of biodiversity and monoculture farmers, we have what we call edges or fence, the boundary around the farm. So the boundary around the farm, they can integrate with the long-term pest repellents like lemongrass. It's a very good pest repellent. And also like now, what I did, because now we use animal-driven plowing, yeah, and it might not, they might not put permanent crops inside the farm because of the plowing. So they divide the farms and then they have some edges within that, the same farm with those permanent insect repellents. And then within the farm itself, there are also those annuals like Mexican marigold. They can be integrated within the farm so that they're also used for seed preservation of the dry seeds to prevent them from attack from weevils. Yeah, so they can spread them within the farm to grow with the other crops, and that one also going to help in insect repellents. And one of the things that I also encourage is like now internal biodiversity. Like now I plant like 6 different species of indigenous maize, and also maybe 6 to 8 different species of beans. So that one also increases resilience. Yeah. And also, if one species is not very strong during that season, another one you can get from another one. But all of them are indigenous species. So biodiversity is very important and very key. So it's applicable in both those people who are focusing on monoculture farming, they can add some biodiversity in it. And also those people who want to practice pure permaculture farming, because there are also some crops which require a lot of rain, like maize. So you cannot put them inside the food forest. So you have to have some plain lands with some minimal integrated pest management strategies and plants, and which are also friendly to the operations, like now animal-driven plowing and such type of activity, and also allowing enough sunlight to enter the system for the benefits of the crops like cereals. So all these things are applicable to a particular level. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Our time is fast now. Brady, can you make your answer?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lawrence. So I would like to have a few slides, nothing big, just a few sentences based on which we can speak. I'll share my screen. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So, yeah. See, let's now think of answering the webinar title, why we need regenerative agriculture, by asking us a couple of questions which are very normal and logical to everyone. So first of all, we should ask ourselves, are we part of the soil, or the soil is a part of us? Because agriculture mainly, natively, it is regenerative in nature. So it is because of all these processing systems, production systems, which started requiring industrial production systems, which started requiring a huge amount of materials, out of which more than 45% of material goes as waste. This is where mainly the production processes and the processing systems started requiring huge quantity of farm produce, so that at least 45-50% can be recovered and made into processed goods. So just now somebody was asking in our group that the question I have is on how can we build sustainable agriculture in consumables capacity. So along with this discussion, I would like to answer that also, that there is nothing called consumables capacity as such. So it is we ourselves, society itself, which creates the need for capacity because of a lot of industrialization, creation of jobs, the running the economy. All these create a very complex system which we ourselves have created. So capacity is a societal choice. Overuse, excessive use of everything that we have. 40-45% of food wasted in hotels, in the farmland itself during the process of filtering for size, looks, beauty, and all those things. So these things create additional burden on the farmers, the additional pressure on the food system to create more and more and more quantities. So that is how this monoculture developed. So basically, we have been regenerative people, and we have always depended largely on Mother Nature to engineer our food systems all by ourselves. But these days things have changed. Chemicals have come up, and fertilization has come up. Pesticides, weedicides have come up. So we are moving from being part of the soil to trying to make soil a part of us, which is not logically possible. And regenerative native agriculture is the only solution ahead of us. And whether we like it or not, mankind will have to come back to regenerative agriculture sooner than later. So this is one of the basic questions which we can all ask, based on regenerative agriculture. Then, for example, see the soil. We all know the soil is full of. It's a biosphere. It's an ecosystem. It's the world in itself, just like our gut. So another question which we have in front of us is, if we destroy our gut microbiomes, we all know that the gut is called the second brain, because the whole lot of system, very, very complex manipulative system, works inside our gut in order to digest, in order to absorb the required elements, supplements, whatnot, all the vitamins, all those things. So the gut works 24/7, not even a moment, not even a second. We cannot call it a second, not even a moment. The gut stops working even during our sleep. Just like gut. If we try to destroy our gut microbiome with all sorts of chemicals, gulping down all sorts of antibiotics, heavy antibiotic doses, we get a lot of problems, digestive issues, and side effects, and all those things. So will we be able to survive for long? This is the second basic question which we need to ask ourselves in order to understand why we need regenerative agriculture. So similar to the gut, the soil is also very, very similar to the gut. Rather, it is the opposite. The gut is very, very similar to the soil. So most of the, it's a highly complex system of biological system which we cannot understand. So it is always good to keep it healthy. So we need to keep the soil healthy and flourishing and full of life, and different forms of life rather, so that the ecosystem, the communication between living things, non-living things, living things which are not visible, the microbes, and all those things, so that the biosphere ecosystem works perfectly. So the soil health is very, very, very important. Then the chemical fertilizers. We use hell lot of fertilizers. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers are the highest used. The ones which we call NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They are the highest used in the world, and among these, nitrogen is the most widespread used chemical fertilizer used in the world. Out of which, more than 60% goes unused. It goes out as nitrogen oxides into the air, and most of it is unused. So we need to ask ourselves, where do we think all these unused components of materials from chemical fertilizers go away after these are used to their requirements by the soil? So once the soil has its requirement fulfilled, so where do the excess go away? So they have to go away somewhere, and they have to either get accumulated somewhere, either in the air, in the water system, groundwater system, or within the soil itself, remaining in excess. So the excess chemical fertilizers will have to get accumulated somewhere. Then we have the pesticides, weedicides, insecticides. We very happily we spray, saying glyphosate. In 2 days, it destroys all the weeds, and we are so happy to see the piece of land very clean and bald like my head, just like a desert. We are very happy to see clean pieces of land with only certain stumps of agriculture left, and they are happy to do it, happy to spray it indiscriminately, and we are happy to see the death of various weeds. So we should also think, where do these pesticides and all these chemicals land up? Because they also have to go somewhere. After the death of the weeds, they get accumulated somewhere. So where do they land up? So we need to ask these primary 4 questions when we think of agriculture. So the core purpose of regenerative agriculture is very, very, very simple. Soil is healthy, food is healthy. When food is healthy, what we eat is healthy, and our gut remains healthy, and the entire system is healthy. So nature survives natively, regeneratively, and mutually healthfully nature survives. So this is the core purpose of regenerative agriculture. Now, earlier questions were, where does the excess chemical fertilizers land up, and where does the excess chemicals like weedicides, pesticides, insecticides land up? And so we have an ancient proverb which we all know, probably which we should remind ourselves: as you sow, so you reap. So these chemicals always come back to us. Whatever is remaining in the excess, get into our food chain, get into the water chain, and it definitely comes back to us, because we see these days that we have found microplastics in human bodies, removed from kidneys, removed from the gut. We have seen glyphosate, that is neonicotinoids, present in the food chain, in most of the processed food. We see a lot of chemicals, preservatives, and so on. So it's very simple. We all already have ancient people, wise people have already written these proverbs and gone. As you sow, so you reap. So we have to be very, very careful, which is one of the primary requirement to go into regenerative agriculture. And there is another African proverb: no matter how powerful a man, he cannot make the rains fall on his farm alone. So, the current scenes of situations of climate change and all these problems, excessive drought, heat, and when it rains heavily. It rains bash these days, and when the sun shines, the sunshine is very, very harsh, rude. The UV index is high. It burns down many things, including our skin. So, our ancient forefathers have written down all this. So based on this, it is very simple for us to understand that regenerative agriculture is the only thing which is going to help us move ahead in a helpful manner and in a societally balanced manner. So from these words, we get a lot of learning where it's all written ages back. Then you have the Chinese proverb: the corn is not choked by the weeds, but by the negligence of the farmer. It's such a beautiful proverb, and it's a fact of life these days, because when weeds come, instead of controlling the weeds naturally, we try to either spray it with chemicals or we just neglect it and then choke our farms in a different way. So weeds come for a reason. There is a reason for weeds being there. Many of the weeds are nitrogen fixers. Many of the weeds they help improve the soil biodiversity. Many of the weeds they help loosen the soil and then help water penetrate better. Many of the weeds they help to oxygenate the soil by creating more pores and more microbiome working behind the scenes. So, these kinds of simple proverbs, ancient proverbs, help us to understand why we need to stick to Mother Nature, why we need to stick to native farming practices and natural farming practices, especially regenerative farming. Okay, so the next one, there is a Danish proverb: the best manure is under the farmer's shoe. So all these have been written and gone ages ahead by our ancient wise people. The best manure is under the farmer's shoe. So we need a good ground cover. We need agroforestry and agriculture system. We call it silvi-horticulture in India. I don't know how it is called generally worldwide. Silvi-horticulture is nothing but you have trees growing, you have fruit trees growing, you have vegetables growing, and you have spices growing, and you have the legumes and nitrogen fixing plants growing, everything under the same farm. So, the leaves from trees fall, and leaves from fruit trees fall, and birds come to eat the fruits, and then a lot of fruits fall down. So all these create a huge biosphere under the farmer's shoes. So we need to understand all these and then create our farming environment. Okay, so yeah, so I'll come back to my yeah. So I hope the audio was okay and you are all able to see this. But the primary thing I would like to suggest is, regenerative agriculture. Just like somebody had asked, can it be done in higher volumes? That is what he calls as capacity, consumable capacity, consumable capacity. Yes, regenerative farming can be made consumable in good capacities because various farms in India we call them as FPOs, farmer producer organizations. So when hundreds of small farms come together and then make a society, a farming society, what happens is the strongest point of Indian agriculture is the system called FPO, farmer producer organizations. So these are legal bodies, these are legal public bodies which function like legal companies which have been facilitated by the government. Governments after governments, they have always facilitated farmers. Farmers are kings in India. So even small farms, and you would be surprised to know that 85% of Indian farming happens in small farms. 85%. That's a huge volume. 85% of Indian farming happens in small farms. What are small farms? The definition of small farms in India, it is 1 hectare and below. That is 2.5 acres and below. So most of the farmers come under the small farmers category in India. So what we have is we have a farmer producer organizations all over the 6.5 lakh I mean 0.65 million uh, villages all over the country. So what these farmer producer organizations do, why I am speaking this is because I need you guys to understand and answering the question in our group, can we build capacity with regenerative farming? So if you look at the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala in south of India, you have these farmer producer organizations sourcing the same material from different farms. They have got sourcing mechanisms. Suppose one farm makes a combination, one farm it is only having 1 acre land, a farmer having only 1 acre land. So he has a little bit of mangoes, a little bit of coconut, and a little bit of bananas, and a little bit of vegetables. So what happens is he talks to his farmer, he joins a farmer producer organization, FPO, as a member, and then he commits a certain volume from his farm into the entire food chain, and then the logistics is built, and the logistics is built via the FPOs, farmer producer organizations, and then it goes into the common market through a common logistics system from an area. So this way, these two states have been pioneering regenerative farming and natural farming in India since a very, very long time, even before independence, probably during the last 3,000 years. These two states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, you can find lot of natural farms all over the place, and all kinds of material, not monoculture, all kinds of material growing in there, starting from vegetables, bananas, coconut, and these two states are also known to be the biggest producers of coconut in India, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Why I'm saying this is, it is there for us to see, and capacity can be built with certain systems being integrated into the regenerative farming. And it is not a difficult task. It is only a mindset reorientation which we need to undertake, and then form a system of logistics of sourcing materials from regenerative farms, and then accumulating the materials into single market proportions, and then creating mechanisms like farmer producer organizations, that is cooperative societies. This way, regenerative farming can definitely build capacities. They can definitely feed the whole world, which it has been doing in many parts of the world. In fact, in our race to understand and go behind various studies, we are effectively forgetting what is already there in many parts of the world. We can study where many parts of the world, people, societies which follow regenerative farming. We can study them. We can share the links of what they are doing. We can search on YouTube. Google is always there, and the chat GPT is coming in. So we just need to instruct the chat GPT in future that you keep sending me links where regenerative farming systems are followed. So it keeps sending you. So it's going to be easier in future finding internet links of places and locations and people and societies which do regenerative farming. So I hope the future is bright, and we should always stick to basics. We must always stick to basic logic, which we need to keep asking ourselves, so that we create the mindset and the capability, the production capability from regenerative farming to feed the world by studying various systems across the world which are already functioning. So thank you very much. Thank you all, and any other questions and discussions we can probably carry on here or in our group. And Lawrence, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Brady. We really learned a lot in that. Obuna, can we hear from you?
Yes, thank you. And thanks Maurice and the team for the privilege to be at this webinar. I am asking the same question I believe someone asked about if permaculture and regenerative farming can be done on a commercial scale. This question was what drove me to participate in the program which Maurice organized on permaculture. I'm starting off with a 50-acre farm, and I have looked at a number of things, read a lot of books, watched a lot of videos, and consumed everything that I could lay my hands on permaculture. It really looks to me like this is the way to go. But starting off from the part of the world where I come from, land is very expensive and very scarce. And it costs us so much to be able to raise that much land because it's something we wanted to do on a commercial scale. And now getting the land is one thing. In the land, there are lots of trees and stumps that you could barely find the soil to grow anything. And so for you to create that space, you need to uproot quite a number of shrubs, that occupy the entire space. So this year we have taken out, we cleaned out about 6 hectares, while at the same time ensuring that we retain as much trees as possible, and knowing also that we have thousands of trees that we intend to plant, maybe to be able to do some early cropping, apply different modes of permaculture as basic things for us to also have space to plant a couple of things. But looking at it, every time I get into the farm, I am faced with that challenge. Okay, no till, but we have a challenge with labor in the part of the country where I come from. We can't find labor to work on these farms. So that would leave us to employing machines to do the work, or importing labor from the outside, which is pretty expensive. A combination of that we are doing now. We couldn't find labor to clear even 1 acre of land for us. So we had to get equipment. And those equipment damaged the soil, because when you bring in heavy equipment on the soil, as it goes back and forth trying to uproot the shrubs, it compacts the soil, which is contrary to what you're hoping to achieve. So it's been a big challenge. And then how do you start growing? What do you plant? What do you grow? And how do you even recover the cost of acquiring the land? Because if you get to some point, I know that planting trees, they take years. We have an estimate that it could take us up to 5 years before we can really start seeing, something on the ground. But given the huge costs that we have to bear, you're faced with this challenge. Do I do a bit of conventional agriculture while waiting for these other crops, the trees, the design, the permaculture design to begin to take shape or not? I would need some advice. I don't know if anyone has gone through this, and you the experts will be able to advise how we can progress on this.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest questions in regenerative agriculture is, can we get productivity from the land piece, whatever we own? Sorry. See, I would like to answer it this way, since you also seem to be having less fertile land, as far as what I could understand from your discussion. I would like to suggest you a combination of tubers, especially tapioca and papaya. I think you know papaya. What is it called in?
Yeah.
Popo.
Yes,
Popo.
papaya or popo.
Popo.
Yeah.
Tapioca and papaya, because I myself took a degraded piece of land. In fact, it was filled with building wastes, which we never knew. So when I brought a small piece of land to make a home, so we saw that the land was filled with building civil construction wastes in order to level it. So we never knew. So I got into big trouble. Nothing was coming, nothing at all. Maybe some few native weeds here and there, and that was it. It was like a desert, whatever I got. So what I did, was point number one. I brought in a lot of cow dung, or you can use buffalo droppings or sheep and goat droppings, and a lot of cow dung and a lot of leaf wastes, green wastes, everything I mixed together and made a whole mulch in the entire place, and then sprinkled some water, and there goes. In 2 weeks, you have big time activity going under your mulch, and you slightly open a few places, you see the soils blackening, the layers blackening, and then the biosphere coming to life in its full force, and then nature takes over. The only thing is you need to wait for about 6 to 8 months. Point number one. Point number two, the best part is, along with mulching, if you go for tubers like potato, or my best experimentation has been, my success has been with tapioca, because tapioca is one of the best native tubers in the Asian and African continent, especially in the tropics, which can revive the drainability of soil and the oxygen cycle and the carbon cycle of the soil, which I have found myself. The first yield will be a lot less, maybe 50% of what you will originally get. But after the first yield, you can see as you dig, the soil becomes loose. It becomes, you can see it. You can feel the fertility of the soil after the first yield. Maybe the first yield will be small, maybe 50% or 40% of what you will be getting, but still, after the first yield, the second one will be superb. I can guarantee you that. Point number two, papaya. I've seen that papaya is a self-adjusting kind of plant. It's a super material. It can stand probably anywhere, and then it can raise itself to the occasion. So papaya and tapioca are two things which can start reviving the soil at your place, and then you can start carrying on with chili and the green chilies, and then vegetables will take some time in such kind of non-fertile or less fertile lands. The normal vegetables will take time, but you can have creepers. You can have good creepers like the long beans, the very long and thin beans. I don't know what it's called in your place. That takes in a lot of nitrogen, as Louis always says. We need nitrogen fixing plants, because these kinds of long beans and creepers, creepers, if you can put creepers along with these two, and then your land will start reviving, and the growth will be superb. I can guarantee you that this combination of native fruit plus native tuber plus creepers will definitely revive your land, and then a little bit of manuring from your side by way of cow dung and maybe animal droppings, domesticated animal droppings and fish waste. You get a lot of waste these days. You can go to the market, vegetable market, at the end of the day, whatever waste they have, you can just come down and throw it in your place. And in a week's time, the nature starts taking over. And then you have manure for free, virtually. So that way, you can revive the soil, and then you can make good volume of yield from regenerative agriculture.
Yes. Can I make a response on that commercial?
Okay, Maurice.
Regenerative. Yeah. So I think there's one thing that we need to have at the back of our mind, that initially I was doing permaculture for passion purposes, but I did another course which was called transitioning from passionpreneur to ecopreneur. So it's like thinking about sustaining your system by making it an ecopreneur rather than just a passion, an issue of passion. So I think from my perspective, there are three perspectives that somebody should look at before even deciding what he needs to plant. One of them is eating and consumption culture in the immediate environment. What do people want to eat? Because you don't just plant what you want. Yeah. So you need to know in this environment what is consumed mostly in this environment, so that now you start producing those things that are produced. And now, apart from the immediate environment, because in the immediate environment, people just walk in. Like people who just walk in my place and pick some things which they know that I produce. Just the immediate community. And then you also have to look at the extended community, the extended environment, yet beyond, like maybe neighboring cities and counties and towns. What do they consume? So that now that one will require you to take by maybe some transportation means. And then apart from the foods, I think somebody was talking about honey. Recently, I was not aware that people consume a lot of firewood and also charcoal. So I made an eco-friendly charcoal burner. So the trees that I trim to allow for oxygen to enter my place, I convert them into firewood and charcoal. So that is also one of the products. And now, apart from that, to make these ecosystems or regenerative farms business-oriented, I think there is what we call now primary plants. Yeah, like now, those ones should occupy even based on the above analysis, the previous analysis. What are people consuming primarily, mostly? What do they like most? Yeah, so that one should make about. They should be different varieties, but should make around 70% of all your systems. And then you also have secondary products, secondary plants. Yeah, maybe they should make around 20%, and also supportive plants like nitrogen fixers and repellents, and also forest. Then maybe another 10%. And you also have, it is very easy to support your kitchen. At some point in my place, you find that the whole floor is full of passions or guavas, because we cannot consume and even sell most of them. Yeah. So there's the subsistence farm that you consume for in your kitchen should also be separated now from your business, and some of it included there. So when designing, we should have this holistic approach to design, yeah, a farm using the regenerative principles. Because even right now we have another farm in Nigeria which is around 250 acres that I'll be coming there to design maybe in June or so. And my farm here is 30 acres. I've already put 15 acres under regenerative design. So it doesn't matter how big or small it is, yeah. But the most important thing is having that business approach to regenerative agriculture, and the way you place your elements now using the permaculture design, but you are focusing on the immediate and extended markets.
Okay, the issue for me, another thing here that hasn't been emphasized is how can you operate a farm on permaculture principles without in a location where you have challenge with labor, with manual labor.
Yes, I think different environments are unique and are contextual. And as I said, you just have to do an analysis of your resources. Labor is part of the resources. Yeah, it's called ecosystem analysis. What do you have to start with? Like, let's say, okay, one of the things that I want to emphasize is that permaculture principles are not made on concrete. Like when we say zero plowing, we just say minimal disturbance, but not zero completely. But ultimately, we want to lead to that. But when you are starting to make your farm, there should be some minimal disturbance and also conservation. But once you do your analysis and you say that this is the amount of labor I have, yeah, like me, I design most of my systems are zero watering system because I only have one worker. So what I can produce without water, temporarily during the rainy season, and also permanently, yeah, during or not during the rainy season, which can survive. And there are still products that are consumable. That is what I plant. So the resources that you have determines how you are going to design your system and the elements that you are going to put. Yeah. So I think that is part of nature, because naturally, if you are in a very dry area, then you'll have to design your system based on that. If you're in a place where there's no labor at all, like my system which we went to Kisumu, it is maybe weeded once a year and that kind of thing. And there's nobody who takes care of it on a daily basis. So I designed it because I knew not because there's no labor, but I could not afford the labor. So whether I go there or not, I think you'll always find something that is going there. So those are some of the factors that you have to keep in place when you are designing your system.
Okay, thank you very much, Maurice. Let's answer some questions here from Dra. He said, how can one take care of storms in preparing the land? I think which the previous speaker spoke about. You want to know how can one take care of storms in preparing land? Can you answer that, please? Maurice? Can you hear me? Maurice?
Speaker on. Yeah, those are called energy inputs or sectors. In sectors, there are things that come in the system and go out. Yeah. So you just have to convert this, like even the sun. You just have to convert this to be helpful to your system. Like I don't know which type of storm. I think there are these storms or hurricanes. I don't know what level of storm he's talking about. Yeah. But there are those which are so much. Which level of storm is he talking about? Is it the typhoons or the hurricanes
no,
or just the
no.
normal?
Storm like you know where
He's talking about the roots. Roots of the root or stem of trees or shrubs in the farm. I guess so.
Storms.
What? Erosion.
Erosion.
Like erosion.
Yeah, erosion. Or erosion, because we have runoff water and we have the one that falls from the sky. So those are two energy inputs. Yeah. So runoff water, we have what we call edges around the farm. You can have as many edges as you can. So the edges, they'll protect from erosion, and they also stop nutrient depletion, because organic matter, when they like now the monoculture system, when it rains, all the organic matter goes. Yeah, but in our system, because we have the edges and we have different layers, so the edges will help to slow down the storm.
Yeah, hello. What the guy was saying was, well, yeah, when the guy says storm, when they talk about storm, it's not erosion really. Because when erosion is much, you understand, so that's what they really say. They say storm. Because when they cannot stop it, you understand, erosion is normal water flow, you understand, when it is called storm, it is more powerful than erosion. Okay, that's what is asking.
All right. Yeah, I think you just have to look at there are things that are beyond. Those are called disasters. They are beyond normal designs, because they can even uproot very big trees, because I have seen them. So those are some things that you can just look at the direction where they come from, and then you can put a heavy whatever of heavy trees which are deep rooted that cannot be uprooted. So that is also a design issue, because once you know the direction, then you can put a barrier of deep-rooted trees and heavy trees, and a good width, a good number of them, like a forest. From the direction which the storm is coming from, you can put a heavy forest there, a thick, heavy forest with deep-rooted trees there, to help to stop it. But you cannot eliminate some of the effects.
So I want to talk about the leftover of the tree where the roots is. No, some people will inoculate mushrooms and they will grow mushrooms from there, and then start decomposing, and then you can decompose a stump within few years, and other people will burn it and they will create biochar as well, and some farmers will plant something nearby, and like Baidia said, like some weeds will create something, and then the nature will take over. I want to mention you guys, thank you so much for the presentation. They're so wise, a lot of topics here. I want to emphasize as well how to connect the microbiome from us to the soil and the soil to us, and it's all that we have to have in mind. The mindset is very powerful. The soil needs to have the microbes, and that's how we have to start creating that biodiversity that we don't even understand yet. And inside of us, we have to preserve that microbes that we are thriving the little creatures inside us by eating healthy. For example, fermented food are so important, and we don't have to forget about these things. And when we understand the human health, we can understand at the same time the soil health. And when the soil health it's understood as well, you can understand the human health. So it's vice versa. It's a very important and very simple idea of how to regenerate the farm and how to regenerate the human health as well as other animals, biodiversity of insects. So thanks for that. And I think it's very important to add manure and composting in the fields, and ask the market, like Maurice Obuya, whatever they sell, try to plant it, and maybe in your land it might grow, it might not, and focus on the thing that thrives best. Maybe your neighbor have something that can share. So start reproducing the things that really thriving in that area, and harvest the water as much as you can, and add manure, and composting. That's how the things create, and then leave from time to time untidy things that maybe you can leave one of the tree stumps and see what nature does. You don't have to ask all the questions that, how to tidy the place. No, you just have to let it, Mother Nature take over. And if you have a small space, maybe you can do different stuff and be creative, be more like a painter. Paint your own farm with colors.
All right. Thank you, Louise. Wow, with time is fast spent.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. I wanted to synchronize something that farmer is struggling with cash flow and the seeds for the next year and things like that. So what I have to input here is when a farmer have land and have enough land for sharing, you can create a little village with natural buildings like a cop house, or made of bamboo, or made of um, blocks of mud. They create natural bricks as well. You can create things with sandbags as well. So the costly is very small. You can bring the community to build a natural building, and that natural building, which is a shelter, a house, you can put it on Airbnb or different websites, and then you can have a second income. And then when you have a second income, you don't focus only in monocrops, because you start creating more like a healthy lifestyle. You get a little bit of income from your rent. You rented your property. You invite people to see your farm, and then you can create two incomes and start building up that awareness. And then you can bring the community, local people come to your farm. They can stay overnight, and then you can have a second income with very little money, with natural buildings being creating for millennia. We could conserve that instead of only thinking of cement and bricks.
Thank you very much.
As many products as your system can produce.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Can I say that regenerative farming focuses mostly on soil health, food quality, biodiversity improvements, water quality, and air quality, right? And when you're also talking, you talk about capacity building and in promoting or making regenerative farming stand. And I think that's a very good idea. We are going to imbibe that within our communities, because most of our farmers here are subsistence farmers. So doing things on their own, I feel it will be kind of very difficult to promote this practice. So the best thing is to bring them together as groups and community, and we promote or we build capacity in them. Thank you very much for your presentations, and we really learned a lot, and definitely we are recording this. Most of our people could not come up here, so we are going to probably replay it or send it to them to go through it. Thank you very much. Any other question or contribution? Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, I think we can take it. Okay. Group. It's always live, so that we can keep it alive.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mama, Maurice, Mona, Abraham, Joseph, Kelby, Louise. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. In the absence of any other team, is there another team now?
Yes, I have. So the conclusion that you have made, you can just write one paragraph and share it to the group for the purpose of maybe sharing with others, and also encouraging many people to come in future and join us. So this is something that you can make people to register, and then we can have panelists and they can ask all the type of questions, and you can advertise it widely in future. It's a very good forum.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye.